Sajid Javid tells the EU that there will be no political alignment after Brexit, Boris Johnson prepares for no deal, and Priti Patel confirms that free movement will end on the first day. Right, happy Sunday everybody. Today we have exciting news when it comes to the UK's position, when it comes to the trade talks and the strategy that we have with the European Union. The EU have had this massive hope that at some point the UK will become soft, and they'll be able to eventually force us to implement some sort of soft Brexit, so that we'll still be tied to the European Union and the whole European project. But today and yesterday we've had the Chancellor, Sajid Javid, Priti Patel, Home Secretary, and Prime Minister Boris Johnson, all three of them coming out and confirming that we are going to be having a proper Brexit, hard Brexit as they would say, which is just Brexit as it was. At the same time, the business community have been warned to be ready. Now, the interesting thing about this whole thing is that businesses have been, should have been preparing for this since 2016. It's basically almost 4 years. Some of them are complaining. You know, the CBI lot and the members of the CBI say, oh, but it's too soon, we're not ready. You've had 4 years. Be ready. And so Sajid Javid told the business community that after we leave the EU, we're not going to be tied. So let's begin. So after a lot of talk, Sajid Javid has told businesses that there will be no alignment with the EU when it comes to regulations. The Chancellor has warned manufacturers that there will be no alignment after Brexit, and insisted that firms must adjust to new regulations imposed by the UK government, which makes sense. At the same time, speaking to the Financial Times, Sajid Javid has admitted that not all businesses would benefit from Brexit, especially short term. This is a whole different concept, obviously. Short term, there will be some bumps in the road. He has said that there will be an impact on business one way or another. Some will benefit, some won't short term, but long term, the whole country will prosper. He has said that for example, Japan's car industry was an example of a manufacturing sector which found success without following EU rules. We do not need EU rules to survive as a country. How many times do we have to say this? Now, as this news came out, there will be a lot of people who are obviously pro-EU, pro-big governments, the corporatists, and the so-called globalists have been kicking off at the same time. Ordinary people out there, small business owners, have been defending the Chancellor on this position. There were a lot of comments from people in the country. One person with Ian saying that, very well said, this is the main reason we put Boris in charge. Another person said, that's what we voted for, and keep talking like that, and I'm feeling more positive than ever. And Mick at the end has also added, well done, Sajid. Now, to ensure that this is definitely not a bluff, Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings have told the Whitehall and the whole establishment that this is not a bluff. Let's get ready for a potential WTO or no deal Brexit, whatever you want to call it, in case the talks collapse. Ministers have secretly started the no deal planning again amid fears that the trade talks with Brussels could collapse. Dominic Cummings has warned that Brussels has not yet woken up to Britain's position. Disagreements on a settlement on fishing rights access is also obviously a big issue, and this could impact the negotiations. At the same time, Whitehall's EU Exit Operations Committee, which is led by Michael Gove, have met to prepare for a disorderly December on Thursday in case the EU don't budge. Now they have to. Now the top number 10 aide, Dominic Cummings, has told government advisors at a meeting on Friday evening that we are not bluffing on the no extension. There will be no extension. He has insisted that the government the EU transition phase will end on December the 31st. But last week, Ireland's EU Commissioner, Phil Hogan, said that the time frame was impossible. Now, this whole thing makes me so happy and optimistic that we have this current new government, because if we had the previous government with Theresa May or anyone else, Jeremy Corbyn for that matter, these people would have just listened to your typical Whitehall machine and the Brussels, all the bureaucrats, the Eurocrats who have been saying, no, this is probably a bad idea, let's just make sure we have a soft Brexit. This is not what people wanted, but it's not necessarily just to follow through when it comes to the democratic will of the people. This is just the right approach when it comes to trade negotiations. You have to go tough, because if you want to get what's right for your country, regardless of who you are, This is how you do it. Always put the interest of your own nation first. Simple. And again, a lot of people have made some comments, positive comments towards Sajid Javid and Boris Johnson defending the position of the new government. Again, we've had a lot of positive comments. One person said, life does exist beyond the EU. We have to. There would be 0 point in leaving otherwise. At last, we see common sense. Sajid is 100% right. 17.4 million people who voted to leave the EU. So leave means leave. Total independence. And finally, divorce is never a happy time, but for the best. It's a time of separation and living separate lives. We are divorcing the EU. We should, of course, live by our rules. Now, all that said, even when it comes to immigration and the Home Office's position, Priti Patel has become very tough on the ending free movement, because the original plan implemented by Theresa May's government was to basically slowly end free movements, especially when it comes to low-skilled EU migration, 2 years after that we have left the European Union. 2 years later. So that basically, if you had followed the current guide, it would have been 2023. But they are bringing it forward so that they will end it literally on the first day. Boris Johnson will impose restrictions on low-skilled migrants who wish to come to the UK on the first day after the Brexit transition period, which will end in December. The claim suggests that the government's radical immigration plans will be brought forward by 2 years. This will remove a temporary extension of the current rules until 2023 that had been demanded by business groups and promised by Theresa May. Now, I know most people have been following this whole deal, no deal, the transition, the extension stuff, but to clarify one more time, we basically have 2 stages when it comes to a possibility of deal or no deal. The first stage has already been completed, which was the withdrawal part, the divorce part, so that we are leaving with a divorce deal. This is a temporary withdrawal agreement until the next stage, which is December. Now, the possibility of a deal or no deal is still on the table when it comes to the future relationships, the trade talks. So by December, this is the second stage where we'll know whether we are going to get a deal. Now, the deal could be 2 ways. One is basically a soft Brexit, a politically aligned deal with the European Union, or it could be a simple, basic, well, complicated, but a plain trade deal with the EU and Brussels, or no deal, which is basically the UK will go out and it will continue to trade on WTO terms, because we are a member of WTO, and at the same time, in order to confirm that we are not bluffing, Boris Johnson has now announced that the trade negotiations with various other countries across the world are now going to be completed, and we are going to be implementing them from day one when we end the transition period. Prime Minister Johnson has now revealed his bold new vision for Brexit Britain, with plans for trade deals around the world by the end of this year. The decision to press ahead with trade talks to the US, Japan, Australia and New Zealand underlines the Prime Minister's vision for a global Britain. Now, the move to access international markets is worth almost £50 trillion. And this is a massive slap in the face for the EU, who've said, if you leave us, you're going to be an inward-looking country, a little England island with no access to the world. In reality, we don't need them when we're going to have access to all these new markets. £50 trillion. So finally, for the first time since 2016, we are winning the trade games and the whole Brexit talks. So be happy, make sure that you be optimistic about what's going to be happening in a couple of weeks when we leave the EU as a member, and in December when we finally become a fully independent country with a new trade agreements with across the world. As we've said many times to our friendly Ramonas out there, we are not Brexiteers to become an isolated country. We just want to obviously take care of our own interests. This is our nation. At the same time, we are going to be a global country. We are going to go out there, trade with people based on mutual agreement and mutual recognition, rather than someone else telling us how to work, how to live our lives, and how to trade. So be happy. We're going to have our Brexit victory rally soon. And as we've said many times, thanks to you guys for suggesting this. We have our obviously new t-shirts online now. The UK Independence Day, 31st of January 2020. You could find the link in the description. Obviously we have various all the designs as well. We are at 52%, People versus Parliament. There are various merchandise. So make sure you check out the link in the description. Get your t-shirts. Prepare for our Brexit victory parties. We are now preparing more events like last week. This time in the Midlands and the North, potentially Birmingham or Nottingham. Or Manchester, and then we're going to go slightly up north as well, so don't worry about that if you can't make it down. And we might even think about Wales, maybe Wales. So we'll see how it goes. If you are enjoying the content, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you click on the subscribe button and the bell next to it. We have a daily show at 5:45 p.m. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.